by the time you're physically done with this webinar here after about a half an hour, I think you're going to feel that you're pretty well comfortable with the reprogramming process itself. And granted, GM is the simplest vehicles to do the programming on, but it's very similar no matter which brand of vehicle you're actually going to program. Might emphasize to you guys about how big this industry actually is. Right now, currently, there are over 100 million vehicles on the road in the United States that obviously are applicable to reprogramming. So this is a huge profit area for many, many shops. And it should be the profit area for a transmission shop, just like it is an independent repair shop or a dealership. So again, I would encourage everybody when we're done with this to really take a hard look at moving forward and getting into reprogramming. A couple reasons for it. One obviously is customer satisfaction. Your customer who's coming to you wants to feel like you can fix their car, and an awful lot of stuff nowadays is fixed via reprogramming versus replacing a part. Number two, it is a profit center for your shop. So bottom line is, this is an area that you can supplement and make quite a bit of money from. The investment itself, initial investment, well, for the tools that I'm going to show you here today, not a huge amount of money, somewhere between $1,700 and $2,000, I would say, for everything you're going to see here today. I did some hand calculations yesterday on this, and you're looking at probably about 40 vehicles before your return on investment is covered. So again, not a huge investment on a shop's part, great for customer satisfaction, and it becomes a profit center for your shop, especially in the future. This is not going to go away. It's going to continue to expand. More and more processors on board these vehicles today are becoming programmable. So again, it's something that you definitely should take a look at. With that said, let's take a look at our sponsor for today. Our sponsor today is ETE Remanufactured Transmissions out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've got a video link there that you can see on your screen. If you'd like to look at what they've got going on, you can obviously go to the video link itself. You can search that on the internet, and again, it's going to give you a nice representation of what they do. We've got Rob on the line with us from ETE. Rob, you want to say a few words to the fellows?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, and thanks to everyone for joining in on the webinar today. I know the guys at ATRA have been working hard to bring you all of these presentations, and certainly ETE is honored to be a sponsor of the webinar today. We at ETE have also been working hard to bring our versions of the electronically controlled GM 6-speeds to the market, including the 6L80 and 90, as well as the 60, 70, and 75. For some additional info about ETE and to check out our online catalog, please visit the etereman.com website. We hope you will consider ETE for your next job. Thank you very much, guys, and enjoy the presentation.
All right, thank you, Rob. Let's move on then, guys. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping as we go through this today. Many of you have been with us for other webinars. Some of you may this be your first time of doing this, so I'll review a little bit of this for you. On the connection side of it, make sure you have a hardwired connection, not a wireless connection. We've had some issues with wireless routers dropping off audio or video, or possibly both of them intermittently. So again, make sure you're hardwired. The handout, everybody should have received the handout. If you did not, you can get a hold of Lance at lwiggins@atra.com. He'll make certain that you get a copy of the handout itself. It is in a PDF format, so you're going to have an Adobe Reader program. If you don't have Adobe, simply search the internet itself for Adobe, and you're going to find that the reader is available from several different websites out there, and it's free. If you got a question as we're going through our information today, feel free to ask it. The simplest way to ask the question, bar none, is to simply type your question into the questions box there in your dashboard, hit the submit key, and the question then simply pops up on my screen, and I'll try to answer your question at that point. The survey that we're going to deal with is an automated survey that kind of gives us some feedback of how everything went, obviously for you guys there in the field. Again, we'd appreciate you filling the survey out as we go through this. So with that said, let's give a little pat on the back to a couple organizations that I've worked real closely with here through the years, and obviously have helped me with this presentation. Drew Technologies out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and of course EC Delco, obviously out of the Detroit area. Drew Technologies is one of the tool manufacturers for many of the OEs when it comes to reprogramming equipment, And of course, AC Delco is where you guys are going to go to get your reprogramming information on the GM vehicles per se. So again, thanks to those fellows. We certainly appreciate their help. Now, you may have heard of this standard that I've got popped up on the screen right now. It says a J2534. What is it? Well, many moons ago, only dealers had the access to doing reprogramming. And then it became apparent that since these vehicles were being fixed in the field by doing programming, that there became a necessity to have the independent repair shop have the ability to do reprogramming also. Well, the processes that the dealers used were very cost prohibitive from the independent aftermarket standpoint. So the Society of Automotive Engineers, or SAE, developed a standard for programming. That standard is called a J2534. So using the J2534 standard, you can buy a piece of equipment that will allow you to actually program vehicles in the field itself. Now, there's different types of programming that's out there. We've got direct programming, we've got remote programming, and we have what they call off-board programming, or I should say pass-through programming. So direct programming is something that the dealers used many years ago. Not many dealerships use it anymore. Then we moved, obviously, to remote type programming or off-board programming, which basically means the same thing. That allows you to program a module right on your bench itself. Again, some shops use that, some shops do not. But most people use what's known as pass-through, which is this J2534 standard. So as you can see there on your screen, the process that they're going to go through is really pretty simple. You're going to have a PC or obviously a PDA or a laptop, something that you can connect to the internet with. You're going to go to the factory website. So that would be a GM website, Ford website, Toyota website, Honda website, whatever it's going to be. It has to be the factory website. Reason it's the factory website is because that's the control mechanism that the manufacturers have to assure that the proper calibration is actually being loaded into their vehicles. Because remember, they are being held responsible for the emissions on this vehicle as well as the fuel economy standards. So they basically got cradle to grave responsibility on this. So bottom line is you've got to go to their website, pull their information off of their website. Well, that's the same thing that the dealer does. It's going to go through your PC, through this pass-through device, and then into the vehicle. That's the basic process that we're going to use during pass-through. Now, as I told you, this J2534 is a standard that was developed by Society of Automotive Engineers. There's also two other standards you need to be aware of. One of those standards is the J2534-2 standard. That standard basically is a reprogramming process and equipment that you use to reprogram other components on the vehicle other than just the standard stuff like the PCM and TCM. So as an example here, one of the networks on this Corvette is the LIN network. Bottom line is, if you wanted to do reprogramming of some of these other features on this particular car, you'd have to have a tool that met the J2534-2 type standard. The third standard out there is a new standard that's coming online. It's a J2534-3 standard. It is a conformance test standard. What that basically means is if your tool meets that -3 standard, they will certify that that tool will work on any of these vehicles out here, not only now, but also into the future. So again, these are questions that you need to ask whoever your tool manufacturer is that you decide that you want to use for doing reprogramming, because you're going to want to make sure that you're not going to have to replace this tool after just a couple of years. And you're going to want to make certain, obviously, it's going to work on multiple vehicles. So you want to know what J2534 standards your particular tool actually meets. So whoever's selling you the tool should be able to answer that question. Will it meet the -2 and will it meet the -3 standards? If it will, then obviously that may be a tool that you want to consider. If it won't, then again, you may not want to consider purchase of that piece of equipment, or you may, obviously, if you get it at the right price. But bottom line is, guys, there are more than just one standard when it comes to this reprogramming process that we're going to do. So no matter what tool you choose, it'll be using the same exact process. Via your PC, you will go to the internet, to the factory website, draw the information out to your PC, pass it on through the pass-through device, which then passes it on to the vehicle itself so that we can actually reprogram that module. So that's the function that we're going to have. That's how simple this actually is. Once you go through the process itself today, you're going to find out that there really isn't a whole heck of a lot to this. It's really a lot simpler than most people think. As I told you, there are three basic types of programming: direct programming, remote programming, or what they also call off-board programming, and something called pass-through programming. We're going to be doing pass-through. That's what's been adopted by most of the independent repair industry, as well as most dealers now use pass-through. So that's what we're going to concentrate our time on. The tools that you're going to use to do that, as I showed you a little bit earlier, is a PC or a laptop or a PDA, and you're going to hardwire that to the internet. Now, the reason I'm saying hardwire it is because of the fact that some of these controllers do not have what's known as reboot programs. So if for some reason you lose connection, so you're using a Bluetooth connection on your PC, and the next thing you know, the connection goes away. At that point, this thing becomes a fishing weight for you. So you don't want to have a useless piece of metal laying there in front of you that you're going to have to buy a new one to replace it with, simply because you had a connection type of issue. So I've learned through the years that we simply go the path of least resistance, which is make sure you cover your bases. In this instance, make sure you have a hardwired connection to the vehicle, as well as obviously to the internet itself when you're doing programming. That's my words of wisdom to you on this one. I've seen lots of troubles with people trying to use wireless connections. So your PC is going to go out. It's going to talk to the website. It's going to grab that information from the website. It's going to take it through that pass-through device, and you're going to then load that software into the vehicle itself. So the process is very, very simple. Again, nothing to be afraid of. Not many things that you can screw up. As long as you can read the screen and follow the information on the screen of your PC or your laptop, you're not going to get yourself in trouble here. These are the typical J2534 devices that Drew Technology has. Again, they're not the only manufacturer out there of this stuff, but they are OE for several different companies, as you can see here. We got Snap-on and Bosch and Launch and Ease and so forth. Bottom line is they also build for several OEs. So the tool that you're going to see me use today is this Cardac Plus, this one in blue that you're seeing on the top of the picture itself. The process that you're going to follow, no matter whose tool you're going to have, will be identical. So I don't care if it's an OTC tool, if it's a Drew Technologies tool, or another brand of tool, the process will be identical. So everything that we're going to talk about here is the same, no matter what brand of tool you've actually chosen. We're going to have some precautions that you need to follow when you start doing programming. These are very important you follow them. These are generic. I tried to make these to where they would fit every application of every vehicle out there. There will be some little quirks as we go along things, but effectively this will fit just about everything that you're going to deal with programming on. Second bullet down, we're talking about making sure you have a hardwired connection. As I told you, some controllers do not have a reboot program. That can get you in trouble if you lose connection. Third bullet down is talking about a battery maintainer. This is absolutely crucial. I've seen lots of people get into trouble by trying to program a controller without having some sort of battery maintenance device on the battery itself. Now, a maintainer is different than the battery charger. A maintainer does not have any AC ripple in the circuit itself that is pumping into the battery. So therefore, you do not have any interference issues when you're doing programming. So a maintainer itself is available from several different sources. The one that the OEs use is a company called Midtronics. Snap-on I know has them. Mac I know has them. You can even use a battery jump box. That works extremely well. So that jump box that you've got that you use to jump the cars out in the lot itself to try to get them started, that will work plenty well for what we're talking about here. My point is you need to have something on these batteries because this process may not be quickly done on some of these vehicles. As we're getting into some of the more sophisticated data buses, like you're seeing coming in from Europe now into the American car lines, you're going to run into situations where they just do not program very fast. Used to be we could program a vehicle in, 15, 20 minutes. Now it may take a couple hours for it to obviously accept the program. because it's got to go through so many steps and checks and balances in order for the program to be loaded. So bottom line, guys, is you need to have something to maintain the battery. Make sure your operating system on your PC is compatible with your pass-through equipment and obviously has met the specifications of that OE manufacturer. On every one of these manufacturers' websites, you will find a specification chart. That spec chart itself will allow you to determine if, in fact, your PC or not is compatible with their vehicles, and do you meet the specification you're supposed to. So bottom line, guys, is make sure that your PC is, in fact, the correct PC for what you're dealing with. You'll have to disable a lot of the antivirus software, firewalls, pop-up blockers, screensavers when you're doing programming. The last thing we want to have happen is for this PC to go to sleep when you're actually doing the programming process. Again, that could make your controller a fishing weight on some of these that do not have a reboot process built into them. Second bullet down, we're talking about looking at the screen. Never do anything on these vehicles when you're programming unless it says on the screen to do it. If you follow that one simple rule, you will never, ever get yourself in trouble doing programming. So bottom line, guys, is if it tells you to turn the key off, turn it off. If it does not tell you to turn the key off, don't turn it off. So bottom line is no matter what you're trying to do on the vehicle, do not do anything unless it tells you on the screen to do it. Once you're done programming, many times you're going to have to reset things like your idle speed and, of course, your shifted apps. This would be very similar to replacing a controller where you actually got to go through and relearn those processes again. So it's no different here. You basically wiped the memory completely out, and you got to start over from scratch. Make sure all your accessories are turned off before you start the programming process. Can't overemphasize that. We should not be listening to the radio and so forth when we're doing programming. The last thing we want to do is have that battery voltage drop too low, which in turn causes the problem. Do not run any other applications other than the J2534 on your PC or laptop. So in other words, we should not be playing, obviously, games and searching the internet and so forth on our laptop when we're doing programming. Simply do what we're doing until that process is complete. Last but not least, on some of the Asian vehicles, we are requiring that the emergency brake be set. So I put that in as a precaution and make sure that you do it on every vehicle. It's a good safety precaution at the very least, and again, it's required on some vehicles in order to get the programming to actually function. So bottom line is, if we can follow these basic standards right here, these basic precautions, you absolutely will not get yourself in trouble doing reprogramming on vehicles. All right, so now, first starting point that you're going to get to is how do you begin? Where do you begin at? Well, the first thing you're going to have to do is whatever equipment you've bought, so let's say you bought the Snap-on tool, you're going to have to look at the information they gave you with that tool, and you will typically have to download some software from their site onto your PC to be able to operate that tool. Once you do that, now you're ready to do the programming. So we're going to go to the AC Delco website in order to do the programming. Now, I'm going to take you through from step A to step Z in doing the whole process. About half of these steps you won't have to do once you've done it the first time. So in this instance here, we don't have a username or password. We're going to have to go in and set that up. So bottom line, guys, is this. We would be clicking the Click Here button, hit the Enter key, after we've gone to the AC Delco website. So the website that you're going to go to is www.acdelcotds, stands for Technical Delivery System.com. So when you put that in your search engine, your web browser, and hit the Enter key, it's going to pull the AC Delco site up. You simply go to that site. You're going to have this picture that you see right here in front of you. Now we're ready to actually go to work. When we move forward, it's going to ask you to check the terms and conditions to make sure you're obviously okay with those. This is basically meaning that you're following the federal guidelines and federal laws, and that you're okay with following those laws. So you're going to click the Accept button, and of course hit Continue. Now we're getting about ready to start doing some programming here shortly. We're going to have to choose a couple things. We're going to want to obviously choose from the main menu the service programming information, because that's where we're going to want to go as far as doing the programming. And now we're down to the subscriptions. Again, once you in turn select a subscription, it will then generate a password and, of course, a user ID for you. But right now, we're trying to go through step by step how you would do this. So we're going to choose a subscription. That's the third line down, as you can see right here. It says service programming only. On a GM, 2 days cost you $55, 3 months cost you $275, and as you can see, 1 year costs you $995. So when you hit the subscribe now button, it's going to take you through loading your credit card information, giving you your IDs, and so the next time that you go in, you won't have to go through all of this rigmarole we've gone through at this point. But bottom line is, these are pay-for subscriptions. Now, the way the law reads is this. The manufacturers were required to provide reprogramming information to the aftermarket in a reasonable or nominal charge situation. And what we mean by that is reasonable or nominal means something totally different from one manufacturer to another. The EPA did not establish a guideline that said everybody has to charge the same amount of money. So you're going to see some of these websites that are even free. Kia and Hyundai are good examples. You can download software for those vehicles without any charge whatsoever. And then, of course, you have Mercedes on the other end of the scale, where you literally have to get a bank loan in order to be able to do reprogramming. So bottom line is, it's basically what the manufacturer feels is reasonable and responsible as far as a charge for their particular software service. So GM says basically 2 days is going to cost you $55. That's what they believe is reasonable and responsible on their part. So again, it can be different amounts of money depending on who you deal with. So there's not one set figure that you're going to have across the board. Once you've logged into the system, this is where you're going to be going to at this point. This screen that you're seeing here is the same screen that the dealer sees. So up to this point, you've been on a Delco screen. Right now, it's basically taking you into the dealership screen itself. Notice that the web address has changed at the top up there. It's now a gm.com web address. So bottom line is, we're showing you right now that you're in a area just like a dealer would be, and you're going to choose to do the reprogramming. That's going to be the one with the little picture of the car. It says SPS, or Service Programming System. So you're going to simply click on that. It's going to give you some information about loading some software. It's going to basically tell you if you have not had Java software loaded, it has to be installed before everything's going to physically function. So you're going to simply click the Start SPS button, and that will open the application for you. Right now it's asking us, do we want to load this software? So if you're using a Tech 2, we would choose Install. Since we're not, we're using the DrewTech Cardac Plus, we're going to say skip that. So again, if you'd bought a Snap-on, you bought a whatever other brand it happens to be, an Ease or a Launch or whatever, you'd choose obviously skip here because you're not using the Tech 2 driver. Now if you had a Tech 2 in your shop, then obviously you would be choosing the Tech 2 driver. Now at this point, the screen that's going to pop up next is it wants you to select the type of tool you're working with. So it's going to give you a list of all the tools that it sees available from your laptop. So bottom line is we're going to choose the Cardac Plus, the J2534 Cardac Plus, the second one down from the top, because that's the tool I told you we're using. The bottom screen itself is showing you what you're programming. Do you want to program something? Do you want to replace and program it? The difference typically between these two functions is when you do the replace and reprogram, you're basically extracting the VIN code out of the old controller, putting it in the new controller. So here we don't want to do that. We don't want to take that time and go through that effort. We're going to simply punch the reprogram the ECU button, and off to the races we go. So we punch that button and simply hit the next button. At this point is when you really got to start paying attention to what's written on the screen. From this point on, do exactly what it shows you on the screen, and you will never get yourself in trouble. So here it's saying turn the ignition off, verify the battery's fully charged, so we already know we need a jump box on this thing somehow. Going to turn the ignition on with the engine off, hook up your device. Basically just follow the steps through, hit the next button when we're done following that. At this point, your box is communicating with your PC and, of course, with the website itself, and it's going to basically interrogate what kind of vehicle you've got. So it's got some pull-down menus on here for you to choose from. Since we've chosen the GM vehicle, the pull-down menu here was obviously the car that I'm working on right now is a Pontiac. It's a 2009. It's a G6. So I've selected those from the pull-down menus, as you can see here. And at that point, we simply move forward. Once it's identified that car, it's going to have the VIN code pop up. So we've put the information in, it's gone out, it's interrogated the car, it's found the VIN. Now, when you get the VIN code popping up, what it's doing is it's having you make sure that this is actually the VIN on the vehicle itself. So you go to the A-pillar area, which is obviously the windshield area, left-hand corner. There's a VIN tab that sets there that you can get the VIN code off of, or at the B-pillar of the car. In other words, the pillar that's right beside the driver's seat, right next to your seat belt area. There's going to be a sticker that you see just right here. It's going to have the VIN code on it. So one of those two locations is the easiest place to find the VIN. You can also find it on the RPO label if you want to go there, but it's a lot easier just to simply go here because you're sitting right there with the door open. So bottom line is we make sure that is the correct VIN, and then we simply hit the next button. Now, this is the point where you have to choose what you're going to program, and that's where we need to talk about something else here also. Grab yourself a pen and a piece of paper real quickly, because if you're serious about doing this, this is something you definitely need to know about. There's a task force out there that you need to search. So you're going to put this in Google. It's N as in Nancy, A as in Apple, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, F as in Frank. If you put those letters into Google and enter key, you'll pull up something that's called National Automotive Service Task Force, NASTF. When you pull that up, that is a consortium between the OE manufacturers, the tool manufacturers, and the independent aftermarket. There's been a pretty major concern that came in from Europe regarding theft of vehicles. And so the government has really clamped down on vehicle manufacturers as far as calibration loading access, especially in Europe. And of course, that's coming over to the U.S. So we're starting to see vehicles, Mercedes is a good example of that, where you have to be what's known as a licensed locksmith in order to be able to do reprogramming. Well, there is something on this website you're going to need to research. It is called a VSP registry. So Victor Sam Paul stands for Vehicle Security Professional. This organization is in charge of certifying people to do calibrations. So bottom line is you're going to want to research these guys a little bit and try to get yourself involved in this, because it won't be too long, I'm sure, down the road before you're going to have some sort of certification in order to be doing calibrations on vehicles. Because again, many of these different modules are included in the theft deterrent system. So it's time to get in on the ground floor of this before obviously it's going to be required. Get yourself certified itself. Very simple process. You simply have to provide documentation that you're a legitimate business, and then they'll do the certification for you, and that will then allow you to do the recalibration. The OEs raise the issue itself because the theory is that they want to make sure only, obviously, qualified people are actually doing the calibration, in other words, upstanding people. So they don't want people trying to steal vehicles by obviously getting access to key codes and so forth on vehicles. So that's what this whole NASTF and VSP registry is about. So go onto the web, research this a little bit. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of me later on about it. But the bottom line is, it's something you definitely need to research. Now, GM has never been a real stickler about this, but I'm sure that this will be coming down the pipe here, again, not too far in the distant future. So at this point, you got the screen pulled up. It's asking us what kind of controller do we want to interface with. we have a choice, as you can see, of a lot of different controllers that are on your screen. Everything from door modules to theft deterrent to transmissions to engines. Pretty well anything that you want to hook up to, you can. We're going to choose the ECM in this instance. So we're going to recal the ECM in this 2009 G6. Once we select the ECM, the next screen is going to pop up as the one that's on the bottom. It says, what kind of programming do you want to do? Do you want to do normal programming or do you want to do VCI programming? VCI programming, what that was about was we actually had special one-off type calibrations where you had to get a permission code from the technical assistance people in order to be able to load that cal. That was designed so that if we had a product issue in a certain geographical location in the country, for example, let's say we had something going wrong, obviously up in North Dakota where it was really, really cold, we could actually develop a calibration for that small number of vehicles up there to try to address that at 50 below zero. So basically what it boils down to is the technician at the dealer would have to call technical assistance, and technical assistance would give him a special number. And then he would plug that number into this website after he chose VCI, and then it would allow him to actually download that cal. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to simply choose the normal. So we click on the normal button itself, and then click on the next button, and that will take us to our operating system screen. Now it's telling us what this calibration is going to be including. This is the calibration it's saying that's available for this system, the latest and greatest. If you click again, you're going to come up with the history calibrations for this. So as you can see, there are a lot of different cals that are out there. Bottom line, guys, is this. If you look at that number 5 and number 6, they're talking about calibration enhancements for code P1400. This is really important you understand this. The way that this works when they issue a calibration is they have to go through a testing procedure, an EPA testing procedure. They just can't just come out with a calibration and say, here's a calibration to fix whatever. It's got to be tested and certified by the Environmental Protection Agency. That's a very extensive process. So what they will do typically is they'll provide more than one thing in that cal. Now, if you notice here, there's only one thing on that calibration, P1400. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing in that calibration. And that's the point I'm trying to make to you guys. There can be other things inside that cal that you didn't even know were there. So you cannot just say always when you look at this website or you look at the Cal ID website that what you see there is the only things that's actually there. There could be things that are addressing the issues you have and you would never ever know that. So again, it comes down to the fact that not everything is physically listed on the websites themselves. So just be aware of that fact. So we're going to choose the calibration we're going to use, which is this 982 calibration at the top. We're going to hit the next key. And now it's going to start downloading from the server into our laptop. And our laptop's going to spit it out to our reprogramming pass-through device, which is then going to send it on to the vehicle itself. So as the bar graphs come across the screen, you are loading the software into this vehicle. Once the software is fully loaded, we simply hit the next button. So once everything goes to 100%, we hit the next button itself, and that will take us to our final screen for doing calibration. On this screen itself, the biggest thing you need to be aware of is two things. First off, it's telling you to cycle the ignition key off, leave it off, obviously for the calibration to be activated. So you're going to turn the key off. It says leave it off for at least 30 seconds in this instance, so you're going to leave it off there for a period of time. When you turn it back on, then we're going to clear the DTCs. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you will see clear DTCs. So you would always want to make sure you clear the DTCs before you're ready to ship this vehicle. So that's the process that we use. As you can see, there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of when it comes to this process. Again, the investment in the equipment is fairly minimal. The return on investment is very high. You can use this as an upsell tool in your shop because, again, it's going to be able to fix a lot of things that the customer has probably wanted to fix for quite a while and just didn't even realize, obviously, that he had a vehicle that you could recalibrate. So, again, it's a profit tool for your shop, but it's also a customer satisfaction tool for your shop. Again, when it comes to the transmission side of the coin, an awful lot of stuff today is not being fixed by replacing components. It's being calibrations. Well, again, I'd like to thank the guys from ETE for obviously supporting us with the webinars here today. A couple other little tidbits for everybody. First off, we're going to be having a webinar coming up for you guys on the Pacific time zone on October 16th. That'll be the 62TE webinar. So hopefully we'll see all you guys at that point. If you have any other ideas of other webinars, feel free to get a hold of me. I'd sure be interested in hearing from you. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about is plug-in devices that are going into the DLCs of some of these cars. We're having a pretty big issue with people installing aftermarket calibrations in vehicles. And they're becoming pretty sophisticated nowadays. They're getting to the point where they are installing them not just by obviously having a programming tool hooked up to the car, but a plug-in device that actually plugs into the DLC itself. So again, the manufacturers are very concerned about this. Folks like ETE and other reman companies are extremely concerned about this. And we at ATRA are very concerned about this because, again, you're guaranteeing these transmissions. And obviously, if they increase engine torque and engine horsepower, they can end up damaging transmissions that obviously you repaired. So one of the things I dealt with in Washington, D.C. here last week was we had a sit-down meeting with the folks from GM, Ford, and Chrysler. Their engineering staffs are very interested in receiving pictures of any of these devices you're seeing plugged into the DLC. Now, some of these devices are pretty transparent, I guess you would call that. And what I basically mean by that is I've seen devices that actually look like a DLC. They're a mirror of a DLC. They plug into the DLC, and the guy would never know it when he's plugging his scan tool in. So my point being to you guys, I need some pictures of some of this stuff. When I have the meetings in Detroit here in another couple weeks, I'm going to be sitting down with the GM, Ford, and Chrysler engineering staffs. And bottom line is that they want to see as many of these variances as possible because they're not even aware of all the different types that are actually out there. And again, the manufacturers are at risk with this. The aftermarket reman companies are at risk with this. And of course, the repair shops are at risk with this. Looks like we've got a question coming up that says, do you see a point in the future when the EPA will help stop the use of these products? I wish I could say yes, but I don't see that happening. And the reason I don't is because if you read the fine print on all these products, it says for off-road use. And so obviously their idea of off-road use and our idea of off-road use are two totally different things. But that's typically how they're getting by with this whole thing. But bottom line is I need you guys' help. I need you to send me an email with pictures of any of these devices you see. I'm going to be writing a Gears article after I get back from Detroit on this particular subject, and I'll try to include as much information as I can in it. But I would love to have as many pictures to show the engineering staff as I possibly can. So I'm going to give you my direct email address. So if you want to write this down, I'd sure appreciate you sending me, obviously, a direct email. You won't have to go through our servers. This comes directly to me. It's S as in Sam, S as in Sam, D as in dog, Garrett, G-A-R-R-E-T-T, @hotmail.com. So ssdgarrett@hotmail.com. So again, I'd appreciate any of these pictures that you can share with me because I'm going to be taking these files back to Detroit here in another couple weeks. And again, I got meetings set up with the staff, so we're going to be going through this and see if we can come to a consensus on what the heck to do about it. So anyway, I appreciate any help you can give me. I don't see any other questions that have popped up. Again, we're going to have an automated survey at the end of this when we're all said and done here. I thank you guys for obviously attending our webinar today. I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you hopefully at the 62TE webinar.